Thank you, everyone. And we have one final conversation, and then we are going to show our two final films, which will be The Intangible Zone and Congress right after them. But right now, you came to an event entitled Creators Take On and Take On. Ha, see, get that? Did you guys get, I thank you. I hope so. Come on. That was clever. That was not through ChatGPT. I always have to point that out. You know, you have to take credit for human creation sometimes. So creators take on climate and mental health. And so these creators right here taking both of those on, and these are their takes on it. So I'm very excited to welcome three amazing individuals. First, Shira Lazar, who's the co-founder of Creators for Mental Health. She will be moderating, and she'll be joined by Sanjana Sanghi, who's an actor and UNDP India Youth Champion, and Alison Stoner, who's an actor, a mental health advocate, and we can announce New York Times bestseller. How about that? All right. Woo. Welcome them on up.
Hi everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah. Energy for the end of the day. We're wrapping. It's a Monday, right? I'm losing track of time. Since this is about mental health, can we all take a deep breath together? When's the last time you took a deep breath, right? Anyone? Did you take a deep breath yet today? Because we're constantly going. We forget to breathe. So we're going to ground ourselves. And it could be a little breath, but, get a bit into your stomach. So we're going to do it through the nose. 4. What do you think? Allison's now a mental health practitioner. So 4 in through the nose, hold 4, and then out through the mouth.
I'll follow your lead.
Should we do it 3 times?
Sure, and maybe if that doesn't work for your lungs, whatever pattern feels most helpful.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it together. 1, 2, 3. Hold for 4. 1, 2, out for 4. Hold for 4, or whatever feels good. In for 4. Hold. Out for 4. Hold. One last time, like you mean it. Hold. And out. Oh, I don't know about you. That felt good for me. Yes, all right. Let's get into it. I appreciate you all and your attention and participation. So, of course, we're all here to discuss and come together for solutions around the climate crisis. But the climate crisis is really closely connected to mental health, as we've been probably talking about throughout today. But I actually found this global survey that was really interesting that put some numbers to it. It found that 84% of youth 16 to 25, hopefully, did anyone say this information yet? Okay, I love it. Bringing new info to the table. Okay, so 84% of youth 16 to 25 were moderately to highly worried, while another noted 58% of US youth experienced anxiety related to climate change. So the anxiety around climate, or we call it climate anxiety, this is a real thing. So of course, we're gonna be diving into this, but more importantly, we're gonna talk about how we can use our platforms for change, which is really key to that as well, action and change. So with that, let's get into what this intersection of climate and mental health means to both of you. Let's start with you, Sanjana.
Good evening, everyone. It is such an honor to be back at the Impact Lounge, actually, and all the incredible conversations that they lead. I want you all to be able to excuse me for my voice. It's jet lag and weather change, and it's a little bit not great. But I hope I'm audible. To come back to, the intersection of the climate crisis and mental health, it's one of those, it almost takes me back to when I was in school and they would teach us how Venn diagrams work. And, wherever there would be that common area, we would have to color it much darker. And my sense as someone who works with the United Nations, and I work with just the youth back home in India, and that is such a vibrant and large part of our population, I've realized that we're not even entirely aware of the many implications that the climate crisis is having on our mental health. I think what we're aware of is that there is a lot of anger and frustration building up amongst us and within us, that we're going to have to inherit a future that we didn't have any contribution to. The fact that the decisions that will affect our future are not decisions we're being made a part of. And the fact that I can't be sure whether, as a 29-year-old woman, do I want to be a mother or not? Because will my child 20 years from now occupy a planet that is conducive to their health and their well being? And these are fundamental questions, and these are such deep and grave questions that you almost can't take out time from your everyday life to sit and think about them, because it can get too overwhelming. So, of course, there is a vast intersection, and there's one very dark side of it, and then there's a hopeful side of it. And what I'm trying to do, and I think every change maker, you guys included, we're trying to make it more hopeful, right? We're trying to see the brighter side, how community galvanization can mean solutions and possibilities. And that's the best we can do.
And optimism doesn't mean turning a blind eye. Right. I
Exactly.
think that a lot of people think, oh, you're just, being hopeful. That means you don't actually care. You need to get angry. Right. A lot of people think you need to get angry to create change, which is true. But we also know that anger and that resentment and all of that isn't sustainable necessarily. Right.
I might, offer a few terms that we can work with.
Let's do it.
So putting on practitioner standpoint, I run a mental health company called Movement Genius. We provide therapist-led content to support well-being, and we recently put on a climate anxiety workshop. So much of what I say here is pulled from Akila Kolazar, or a creator I follow, Leah M. So credit is distributed here. And Akila was talking about ecological grief, which can encompass these different stages of anger or bargaining or even denial for, I think, some of us, because it's hard to even know where to begin to allow something to come from out of our awareness into our awareness if there will be that period of overwhelm. But there's also a term called solastalgia, which refers to, I think Glenn Albrecht coined this, which refers to this kind of homesickness and pain and longing as we watch the environment around us be altered and degraded. And then there are also other, I wrote down here, other metaphors that can be helpful when talking about climate anxiety. You can actually think of it, as Akila put, as a wildfire, in the way that it signals this kind of fear that feels out of control, and it follows these sort of negative thought patterns and worst case scenario kinds of thinking. But then alternatively, we can also still watch metaphors around fires that are containable, that can actually reflect resilience, resistance, and other aspects that, nature is full of wisdom if we just watch and listen and maybe decenter ourselves. So yeah, that's just maybe some terms to help guide how we frame the conversation.
I love that, and it's so important. So thank you for bringing that to the table. And now this conversation is all about how Gen Z can address mental health through storytelling, of course. I'm an elder millennial, so represent any elder millennials out there? Thank you, thank you. Gen Zs, any Gen Zs? Okay, I love, great. Yes. So let's talk about how Gen Z is really taking this on right now. You're both creators in your own way and using social media. So what does that mean to you right now on your own platform?
I think I'm a film actor back home in India, and I think my creation has happened as an artist in the stories that we tell. And that experience of being the vessel to tell someone else's story allows you to choose whether you want to pick an empathetic lens when you create and play a character, or an apathetic lens. Do you want to bring in the perspectives of many people, or do you just want to be tunnel vision? And that has made me realize that for something to be climate forward or socially conscious or socially aware, it doesn't have to be glaring on the banner of that film or a content piece. It can be subliminal, it can be subtle, it can be engaging and entertaining. And in that way, I find that it travels much deeper. Because I think the moment you tell an audience that we're going to be giving you some form of intimidating jargon, you're instantly alienating them. But the moment you, through a little bit of maybe dancing back in Bollywood, and sometimes through a little bit of color and joy and laughter, bring them in, the problem becomes a little more solvable, and the desire to come together to solve it increases. So, as a creator, as an artist, as a storyteller, personally, that's where I'm at. And that's what I hope to do. And those are the conversations we were having in the green room as well, right? That how can we bring socially conscious entertainment into the mainstream in a way that is as engaging as any other piece of content?
If I can build on that, I think because there are so many depictions of the dystopian version of how this can go, I listen to a lot of young people saying, well, where's the vision then? Point me to a vision, show me hope. What does that look like practically in my life? And you see this trend toward a kind of nihilistic outlook, and it's understandable because those are the variables they're sitting in with the perspective of doomsday as they're scrolling. And so first and foremost, the fact that we're talking about Gen Z without having someone Gen Z up here to like, first we gotta, this should be someone here who is Gen Z, who can weigh in and speak for their experience within being Gen Z. And when I think about how we can start to reframe our stories, what would it look like? I think there's an author, Ayana, Dr. Ayana, insert last name, who wrote a book called What If We Get It Right? And so she allows us to reconnect with the visions and strategies that we also see are available if we just reconnect with community-centered organizations who are on the ground, actually living out the hope with their feet every day. If we reconnect with indigenous communities and re-indigenize our perspectives, like this doesn't have to be new. We actually can return to information and wisdom that is absolutely available outside of the systems we often inhabit that are domination and extraction focused. It is possible, but we do need to provide those stories for young people to see. And that also invites us to ask ourselves, where are we located in this conversation? If we feel a sense of disconnection or dissociation because it's so overwhelming, perhaps that's where our opportunity is to start practicing our management tools so that we can get into the fight and live into the action. And I think that's where maybe I myself and many of us get caught up is we freeze in that overwhelming space. So how do we process, express, release whatever is going on inside so that we can actually get to the accountability phase? Because that's what we all have to do, not just as storytellers or people of influence in this space. That's just this is our human experience, reconnecting to our place in this ecosystem.
Yeah, because a lot of times, also as creators, we're being used in our platforms and as megaphones for some of these issues happening. But a lot of people forget when they approach us that we're not even taking care of ourselves. So how can we tell others how to take care of themselves, let alone the planet? So it's a bit of a balancing act. And I love that we want to use our platforms in a responsible, hopefully, way.
But can I just say
Yeah,
something
yeah.
there? You know, the bit about maybe not being able to take care of ourselves, so how can we tell anyone else to take care of themselves? I think one of the strongest ways in which we can do that is by sharing that we may be struggling in taking care of ourselves. The kind of wall that's built between celebrity and audience, or someone we look up to, and the audiences that consume us in any shape or form, is almost, while it's narrowing down with social media, it's also widening, where we do feel like it's easier to put something out on a day that I'm looking great and feeling great versus a day that I'm not, right? And sharing that our fears, whether they're even climate related fears, are real and they eat us up on some days, will hopefully allow 3 girls back in India and 4 boys in New York to be like, okay, sure, I can be sitting even on a Tuesday afternoon and this fear can be eating me up and it's okay. Normalizing fear and anxiety is so important. And I think we need to be doing that a lot more, all of us.
And coupling that with some tools, because we don't want to get stuck.
And that's
So
what
it's
you're
the both
doing.
and of it all.
It's what I'm doing with Creators for Mental Health, bringing mental well-being tools to the creator economy. And you mentioned something great. And we talked about hope a lot. There's actually a trend right now out there called Hope Core, right? So the idea of bringing hope to the online world. Is it possible these days? And let's now go into social media and using social media for impactful messages. Thoughts on where we're at, because we're talking a lot about censorship on social media and free speech and new ownership for different platforms. And what does that mean to how we continue to get the message across in a powerful, authentic, and true way on these platforms right now?
I'm going to let Allison take that because, yeah, she's ready.
We don't have enough time
yes.
for all of these questions around privacy, digital privacy, policy, AI, governance, etc. Where to start? What's most important? Okay, I'm gonna zoom out and go somewhere left, and
Okay.
then, or not politically per se.
Yes.
I'm going a different direction, and then maybe wherever you want to bring us back is great. So I'm actually these days trying to recognize that yes, categorically I do fall into a position of being a content creator, sure, but I am a human first, and I'm not an expert in these matters, and so I'm trying to get hyper local and physically involved with what's happening on the ground in my area specifically. So that has afforded me not only the chance to actually find hope because I'm participating in, let's say, food distribution opportunities, or local gardens, or whatever that activity is.
Yeah.
But I can then amplify what other people are already doing instead of trying to pretend like I need to be the spokesperson and make up my own talking points.
Yeah.
So my response here is like, please keep passing the microphone to the people who eat, sleep, breathe, who also face the brunt of it the most, and who can speak about what works in that specific community for this time, as opposed to some of these just sort of like nebulous offerings of like, you should reconnect with nature. Go outside and look up at the sky. That's true, sure, yes. But how many times have we heard lists of things that can help us and then we just scroll to the next post? So I'm really trying to bring myself into the present by re-engaging hyper-locally with embodied experiences. That's where I'm going, but please take us anywhere you would like to take us.
No, I love that, because as a creator, are there any creators in the room? All right, media folks. Nonprofits and organizations. Okay, yes, there we go. So I think this is actually really interesting because it goes back to like working with someone on a big platform and how to engage them. It's about saying what that cause means to them, but also getting them on the ground with people in that cause. That tells the story. Right? There's a lot of pressure a lot of times when we're given a campaign or something like that to, rattle off again the talking points or force our way into something that we might connect with, we might not, but we care about. But what we care about, we all want to be inspired. And the best way to do that is get us to the people doing the work. So I think this is helpful to those who are creators, who are in media, and specifically the organizations out there trying to get with Gen Z, trying to figure out what to do on social media, as well as with the big creators out there.
Y'all stop making these graphics and thinking that graphics convert people into activists. We scroll past the graphics. We have that data. You gotta bring someone. Also, there are creators who truly care, and there are creators who just have a platform. And please be strategic about giving the people who just have the large platform, give them the talking points. That's great, but like, get people on the ground. People do care. I'll send you a list of people if you need to find folks. I promise. There are people who are about it, but please.
Do you? I
Any
guess
thoughts,
yeah.
or-
What is the best way to engage you and your on your platforms when you're looking to do stuff like that? And also, do you think about I guess what some of us think about here in the U.S. right now, in India?
Of course, and we've been, you know, it's been a little bit of a journey with discovering what the best way to get people to care would be, because the thing about when, at least in my experience, I've realized that the moment I have spoken about anything that is, I work in youth-led development and education. And within that, for me, falls the climate crisis somewhere in the middle. But these things can very easily sound fairly intimidating, right? They can sound overly intellectualized or hard to digest. And I have to recognize, I think knowing your audience is step one. I have to recognize that those people are with me on my journey for the films that they have loved me in, not for the advocate I've grown to become. So I don't want to intimidate and alienate them, and instead I want them to just understand why I care. And in that journey of understanding why I care, they might start caring too. And I think that for me will be my biggest win. And I always say that, when I go to colleges back home in India or even around the world and I get to interact with students on ground, when they say that, when you said that at the UN General Assembly or when you said that we need a seat at the tables of change, I went the next day and told my teacher that, no, you have to let me do this or you have to let me fight for this. And that, who is to define what impact means? In their world, in their microcosm, being able to do something small in school is impact. And it's about reminding the young kids and the Gen Zs that impact is in everyday small things and it's in big things. But unless we come together, none of it is going to happen.
What you're talking about, including with such a noisy world that we're in on social media, is that consistency. Not doing it as a one-off, not just doing it for the special day or the special month. How are you showing up consistently with your own brand and organization and with the creators? What is the long-term relationship, and how is that showing up online, but then offline? People love sharing. The funny thing is, as much as creators in digital, we like, legacy media, TV, the minute you show you're at the UN or you're on TV, or of course, these traditional legacy moments are shareable on social media, which is one interesting. So create a moment that a creator can highlight and be proud of and take pride in. That's one, because they saw you there. You could have spoken about that on your phone, but the fact that you were given a platform like that and they acknowledged you in a special, unique way was meaningful.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about the fact that sometimes it's the genuine work that an actor, creator, storyteller does that lands them up there at that platform and podium with the hope that a larger number of people will hear you, right? Because this is very easily on social media, there are no checks and balances. And I think that's the other part of our discussion, which is that we can't run amok with what we're trying to say. It has to be controlled in a way that is specific to growth and positive impact. And I think that's where sometimes organizations and platforms help with that legitimacy to bring that in.
Yeah, what I'm hearing too is at the heart of this, as the world of privacy collapses because of
Yes,
mass
bring it together.
surveillance.
Bring it together.
And our lives are blurred between, visible and what we thought was once privacy, but it's still tracked and aggregated, etc. I think it will be easier for each and every one of us to participate in these conversations if we ourselves are simply living it, and this becomes an extension of who we are, as opposed to what's the next post that we can make or what's the next campaign that has the hashtag. That's great, but if you take some time to locate yourself in this conversation and ask, what is mine to do here right now? What is my role, or what do I need to do to grapple with my resistance so that I can get into that action phase? If you start living into that in your private moments, that are now public that will create the consistent, authentic, non-performative story that does reach people, because it's an extension of who you are. And I think that deeply inspires those in our communities, our family, the people around us, where we're like, I'm so inspired by someone I stay with, where I see the changes they're making, and it is allowing me to actualize those changes that I've been meaning to do for years. So, we're humans first, and we have to live it first. Because I think people are also we're over the inauthenticity and performative nature of it all. Like, that's not getting us anywhere. We're running towards our own extinction. So we have to start living counterculturally.
Yes.
Return to those roots. They're there. They're here. It's possible. Yeah.
So on that note, I think that wraps it up, because I was going to ask
Great.
you what advice, but you pretty much said it. It's coming back to living, and not
Listen
just
to
always
community
sharing.
educators, community organizers,
And,
Indigenous voices, Black and Brown leaders, etc. We know.
There you go. Well, Sanjana and Allison, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks
Thank
to
you.
all of you. Hope you left with some wisdom, advocacy to action that we can take today around the climate crisis and mental health. Thank you so much to the team here.
you.
And Heather
Thank
for
you.
hosting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.